What's going on, you guys? Welcome back to another exclusive segment from the greatest podcast on turf. I'm Anthony.
I'm Ryan, and today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. We're going to be doing position rankings for wide receivers. Be sure to like the video if you guys want to see some more position rankings. Maybe we'll go to some other positions, quarterback, running back, see what happens.
Some more arguments like we're used to arguing. Let's get into it. To start us off, we're going to start with number one on our list, and I think the obvious answer for number one, Julio Jones, best receiver in football. How about you? Who's your number one?
My number one's Davante Adams. I personally believe that you're giving Julio too much credit. You know, he's still in my top five, but coming off of only 700 yards, you can't just give him that number one when you have other guys like Adams, Hill, D-Hop, Diggs showing off. Yes, I agree that Julio has proven himself before, but
best receiver in the league.
I don't think you can give him that title unless he's competing with the other guys.
I mean, there's nothing. He's injured. There's nothing he can do being injured. He's still number one. I'm not knocking D-Hop, Davante, and all them other guys. They're all great receivers, but Julio's just top one. I mean, I think he's number 25 in receiving yards all time. He's got 2 receiving titles under his belt, and yeah, I mean, he's been dominant. And about every year he's been healthy, he's been dominant, and he's proved that. I mean, and it's not. I mean, them having Calvin Ridley, okay, kind of takes a knock on him a little bit. Takes away some of his. What is my progression?
I wouldn't say that. I mean, Calvin Ridley. You see Calvin Ridley come in, and he does just as good. And yes, that might be because Julio's on the other side, not drawing double coverage, etc. But if you look at this year, Julio was hurt, and Calvin Ridley's, he had to be that number one guy, and he was still able to do that.
But when you have Julio on the field, all attention is gonna be on Julio. I don't care who's on the other side of him. Julio Jones, top 5, top 6 receiver all the time. When he's on the field, defenses are gonna take that into account and be like, all right, we got Calvin Ridley on the other side. We don't want to let Julio get going because he's dangerous when he gets going. So I mean, that also plays a big factor into Calvin Ridley is like his production and why he produces so much. And like you said, I mean, Julio's hurt there. I mean, there's nothing he can do. He still had 700 yards, and what did he play in 6 games?
9.
I mean, it's still not too bad for only playing a little bit more than half a season.
I mean, the stats that you're giving him, it kind of disputes our argument a little bit because you're giving him all-time stats. You know, he was a 2-time receiving leader all the time, but he's also played 10 years. And the other guys on this list, like Davante Adams, Tyreek Hill, have not even played like half of that.
I don't think that those guys bring what Julio brings to the table.
I think they do. I think
Julio can get open. He can break, or he has an elite route tree. He can high point the ball. He's not the fastest guy in the world, but he could still use his speed to his advantage. And he can go up and say he's double covered. I think he can go up in double coverage and get the ball if he needs to. Which I think the only other guy that I have on my list that compares to Julio in ability wise is DeAndre Hopkins, just because they have a similar build. Tall guys can go high point the ball, elite route running skills, and can get open. But I just think Julio definitely, I think he's the clear-cut number one on my list. The only guy that can really compare to me is DeAndre Hopkins and maybe Davante Adams.
In my opinion, I think Davante Adams and Tyreek Hill are the most unguardable receivers in football.
I mean, I can see what you're saying. Davante Adams, crazy route runner, probably best route runner in the league,
100%.
Short, medium, and deep route. But Tyreek Hill, I mean, it's kind of hard to guard a dude when all he has to do is just run straight and he'll beat you.
Are you going to count that against him, though?
I'm not going to count that.
If he can just run
it's a luxury.
Straight,
I mean,
exactly.
Especially for Mahomes. Mahomes has a cannon. He can tell Tyreek Hill run straight and he'll get open and catch it.
And just imagine,
but Tyreek Hill, what I've been saying, he doesn't bring everything that Julio brings to the table.
He doesn't have to.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
I mean, if he can just run straight, I'm going to take that. I don't care. I don't care if he can run a great out route. I just care if he can get open, which he definitely can do. And I mean, you got to think with Tyreek Hill, like if Kelce wasn't there, imagine the more receptions and the more yards that he would have if Kelce wasn't there.
He would also have more attention on him, like Julio Jones. So would he be producing as much? We don't know. Because he's not the true number one option on the team. I mean, Travis Kelce's the best tight end in football. And that's him and Tyreek Hill, top 5 receiver, like we're saying. It's just goes hand in hand.
And another thing with Adams and Julio that, like, is a pretty big difference for me is, in the red zone. I think Devontae Adams is a much better red zone receiver than Julio Jones. He's since like 2012, I believe, or 2014, something like that. Devontae Adams has the most touchdowns in the red zone. Aaron Rodgers might just like throwing touchdowns, whatever, but Devontae Adams has been lights out. He had 18 this year.
Ryan Sawyer, analytics guy. But no, I just want to touch on one more thing before we get on with the list. Another thing, like you're saying red zone. When you're in the red zone, you have Julio Jones lined up on the outside. What play do you think they're going to run? Fade to Julio. Julio Jones getting double teamed most of the time in the red zone. That's why he doesn't produce as much in the red zone. Because, and another thing, you got to look at the quarterbacks. We're saying all these guys. Diggs has Josh Allen. Tyreek Hill has Pat Mahomes.
Well, don't do
D-Hop
that.
has Kyler.
Don't do that.
Aaron Rodgers, Devontae.
Matt Ryan's a good passer. Back in the day.
Back in the day, yeah.
When
but
Julio was good, Matt Ryan was just as good with
Julio's
him.
still good. I don't know. You have all these receivers have elite quarterbacks, and Matt Ryan's regressed since the year the Patriots came back and won the Super Bowl. What was that year, as I say? 2016, I think it was, yeah. But no, all right.
Well, let's move on. So I had Adams number 1. He had
Tyreek Hill.
You had
not Tyreek Hill, Julio Jones.
So my number 2 is Tyreek Hill. Like I said, I think him and Devontae Adams are the most unguardable receivers. Tyreek Hill might not be the best skilled, but he's the most athletic in terms of speed, in terms of getting open. I think that's pretty important.
Number 2, I got Devontae Adams. I think it's pretty safe. He can be in the argument for top 2. I don't think it's as controversial as my Julio statement. I think some people definitely forgot who Julio was because he hasn't been making as much noise because he's been injured, but that's the last
I'm just
one.
looking at it as, this year with Julio. But moving on.
But DeAndre Hopkins, great receiver. You saw what he did to the Cardinals offense this year, brought out a whole new thing of that offense. They weren't as nearly as powerful as they are now with Devontae Adams. I think they will be more effective on offense with another weapon, but Devontae Adams and Kyler Murray, they both looked really good.
Devontae Adams didn't play with Kyler Murray.
DeAndre Hopkins. Sorry, their names are so similar.
Yeah.
But yeah, DeAndre Hopkins, you saw he can high point the ball. His route running is elite. You see how he does on routes.
Hands are incredible.
Incredible hands. He rarely drops a ball, and if it is, it's usually overthrown.
Yeah, D-Hop, he hasn't had good quarterbacks at the start of his career. And then at the start of his career, he wasn't with Watson. And then I think he was a major part in developing Watson. I think he was a major part in developing Kyler Murray. It's pretty exciting to watch. Hail Mary was good. It was good to see.
Like I say, he can high point the ball like Julio.
Yeah, D-Hop is a 3-time first team All-Pro. Best hands in the league.
I like Devontae.
He's my number 3.
I like DeAndre Hopkins a lot. Jesus, why can't I say it?
He's my number 3.
Number 2. Oh, he's your number. You have
he's my number
DeAndre
3.
At your number 3.
Tyreek Hill is my number 2.
My number 3, Devontae Adams. We touched on it. Elite route runner at all the 3 levels of the field, short, medium, and deep. He catches a lot of touchdowns. He can get open on almost any coverage. You saw how he was against some of them teams we saw them play. He was in press coverage. He was getting open. If they were playing back on him, he was getting open. Like you said, he's very hard to guard. I don't think that he's over D-Hop and Julio in the league right now. I think he's definitely an elite, and that's no knock on him. Julio and D-Hop they're all great receivers. I just don't think he's quite there yet.
Yeah, I think you got to move him up just because of how good he is in the red zone, how good he's been over the past couple years. And his route running is crazy. Like his slam route, dude's gone before the corner even moves. Like it's crazy.
Yeah, you saw that.
His footwork is crazy.
I don't know. I remember I was getting so mad at the Bucks. It was like the Bucks ran engage 8 and when Green Bay was on the goal line, and he just ran a slant, had him in one-on-one coverage, and the corner he barely took a step, and
Adams was there.
Yeah, he was there. Devontae Adams was in the end zone, and I was like, "What are you doing?" But yeah, that's definitely red zone presence. I can see that's definitely a big thing to bring to the table as a receiver anyway, and his route tree helps that a lot. So I can see what you're saying about him.
And he doesn't have another target like Julio. There's Calvin Ridley that they give attention to somewhat, but Adams they're not giving MVS or Allen Lazard attention in the red zone.
We touched on that before too, talking about that, and that's a blessing and a curse. For like you're saying, for Devontae Adams to put up the numbers he puts up with being the sole option on that offense. Aaron Jones, I guess you could say second
Yeah.
But still, I mean, him producing how he produces, I think that's definitely a great thing for him and definitely adds to his resume.
But that leads on to our number 4. This guy's new in the top 5 list for me.
Me too.
Stephon Diggs. I think he's had a great year this year. I mean, he's coming from Minnesota. Kirk Cousins was throwing him the ball. He still did good in Minnesota, but now
Kirk Cousins sucks.
yeah, Buffalo, and he's developed Josh Allen tremendously.
Like we touched on that before.
He led the league in receiving this year. You could probably argue him going up higher in this list. Honestly, he had a great, unbelievable playoffs. Played out of his mind.
Yeah,
Played out of his mind this year.
The whole season.
Yeah.
I mean, like you said, I mean, all these receivers, they're all have an argument to be wherever they're at. I just think it's personal preference and like the way we believe it. But for number 4, I said Tyreek Hill. I think that, like I said earlier, he brings speed to the table. His routes are really good. He has a great route tree. He runs amazing routes. I just don't think that he brings as much to the table as Davante Adams, DeAndre Hopkins, and Julio Jones above. And I could argue, like Ryan said, I can argue Diggs to be above Tyreek Hill, move Tyreek Hill down to 5. But like I said, it's all just personal preference. I mean, they're all great receivers. They're all capable of being number 1 on this list, I think, except maybe Diggs. I don't think he's number 1 yet.
No, it's just a matter of, like, kind of what you value more.
Yeah, and, like, what they bring to the table. And I'm not knocking Tyreek Hill's speed, but, I mean, if you have a guy that can bring speed, size, agility, and route running to the table, I'll take that over just speed and route running every day.
I mean, I think that Tyreek Hill's speed, agility, and route running is, like, a whole nother tier compared to Julio, and I think that separates him to the point where he doesn't need a high point to football.
Yeah, and I think that I think it makes up for it. Like, I don't know. I guess I'm kind of contradicting myself, but I don't know. He makes up for his lack of size with his speed, route running, and agility and all that stuff.
Yeah. Now that leads us on to our number 5. Don't be mad at me for this one, but I got Julio Jones.
Freezing cold take.
The reason for this is he didn't have a great year this year. Yes, he was injured. You can say whatever, but I'm going off of, what I saw this year, and I think Julio, I'm still giving him a lot of respect, putting him at number 5 when he only played half the games. He still had a pretty good year. He's one of the established greatest wide receivers of all time. Not saying the greatest, one of the greatest wide receivers of all time.
Definitely top 6, but I think you could argue top 5 all time.
I think I'm still giving him respect, putting him at 5, just because, he didn't play much. But that's where it is for me.
For number 5, I have Stephon Diggs. I don't need to go much into it. We kind of touched on all of them. Our lists were kind of the same people, just different orders. We kind of touched on them all. But my question for you, who would you put at this season? Who would you have put at number 5 instead of Julio, since you're taking into account this season?
It would have to be, you would have to look at DK, I guess.
No way. People overrate him so much. He's not. He's the 3rd best receiver from that class.
Who else is in that class?
A.J. Brown, Terry McLaurin are both over DK Metcalf.
A.J. Brown's good, but he didn't have that great of a year this year. Who was the other one?
Terry McLaurin, Scary Terry.
He's just not on a good enough team to get those stats. DK...
For what you got to look at for Terry, what he does with the quarterbacks he has, though.
He's
still 1,000-yard receiver every year.
But he's not putting up those high numbers until he gets that. DK is a guy that, he got shut down by Jalen Ramsey, but he's still putting up
3 times.
Like 1,300 yards. He's still getting touchdowns. He's still balling out for the team. He's still a highlight reel.
Yeah.
He's still very hard to guard in football.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I don't know. I just think that our top 5 receivers are all definitely, I think they're all locks at top 5. Last year, if I was making this list, I think Michael Thomas would have been at 5 instead of Diggs, but I think
Diggs wouldn't have been
Slam
Boy.
Michael Thomas, very overrated, but yeah, I think that's going to wrap it up for this video. For the podcast we just recorded, we did our top 10 free agents, where we think they're going to go, and where they're most likely going to go based off of noise around the league and what's happened in that position in years past. So yeah, be sure to go check that out. Make sure to like this video, subscribe if you're new, and we're going to keep bringing you guys great content. We'll see you next week.
See ya.